Welcome back to the Level One Coach Podcast, new season. The person that you're hearing right now is Drew, and the next person you'll hear is Mikhail. We're just going to talk on this opening one of the season, just some coaching philosophy stuff. We've had some conversations about just kind of making it a little bit less theoretical, more personal to us. Just letting you in more on what we do, and what we think. So we're going to try and stay focused and drill down that rabbit hole, but I get pretty distracted and might go a thousand different ways. But coaching philosophy, it's just like I'll kind of leave it there. Initial thoughts. I'm sure you've had some conversations recently around this as we do in the off season. So you get us started.
Think for me, coaching philosophy, I kind of have like two tenets or two things that come to mind. One is sort of an attitude, and the other is a mindset. And the mindset has two components to it. The attitude is taking ownership, and I say that's an attitude for me, just that like being in charge of everything in your own world and taking ownership of that, which to me is like as an athlete or as a player, like ultimately you're responsible for your own success, for your own improvement, and the coaches are here to facilitate that, all coaches. And if coaches are doing things for the right reason, then that should also be a goal of theirs, is to facilitate your success. But um, it's a coaching philosophy for me because it starts with the coach. Like you've got to now take ownership of things in your own life. And you've got to be aware of how your actions, how your words, how your ability to take ownership of things in your own life affects those around you. And if you're able to do it well, those around you are going to follow and they're going to emulate what they see. And if you're not able to do it well, they may not follow and they may not emulate what they see. Or they may emulate what they see, but it won't be positive. It won't be what you'd like. So I think that one for me is really important as a coach. Like I really try to do that as much as I can, and by no means am perfect at it, but taking ownership of things in my world, and then my belief is that the players will see that and try to do that as well, or at least know that like coach expects this of me, but he also expects it of himself. Um, the
Give me
other
an
one for
example.
me, sorry,
Give me an example. We said tactical, but just throw one at me if you
yeah.
got.
So an example for me, I feel like I may have mentioned this last year on a previous episode, but I'll restate it because it's the one that comes to mind. Running the PK. This was, I think it was 2 years ago now. It must have been if I was talking about it last summer. So 2 years ago, running the PK, completely forgot to send out the pre-scout of the opponent we were playing on a Friday night game. And I was driving to the rink and I had this like, oh shit moment. Like I didn't send it out. I thought I did and I realized like I didn't. And I don't know why. I can't even like remember why I forgot. And I say that's unlike me just because like I make a weekly checklist, like make sure you do these things. So I forgot. And my first thought in the car driving to the rink, this is like 4 o'clock, 4:30 before a 7 o'clock game, was like, well, I can ask them if they got it. I know they'll say no. And then I could be like, really? I swear I sent it. And I could kind of like feign knowledge or fake that I didn't realize it.
Mhm.
And that was like that's like that white lie that you tell. It's like that gut reaction of like just do that because it's easier. And I like sat there for a second and thought about it and I was like, you just gotta own that, man. Like you made a mistake.
Mhm.
And if you want them to like own a mistake they're gonna make in a game or own a mistake they're gonna make on the kill later that night or the night before or whatever, like you gotta exemplify that too. And so I did that. I just like we always meet pregame at about 5:15 and I was like, guys, I totally fucking forgot to send this out. That's my bad. I don't know how that happened, won't happen again. And in the future, if you haven't gotten it from me by like Wednesday night, I usually send it out Wednesday day, like please call me or text me so that I can do that. But that's on me. Um, did it go over swimmingly? I actually don't think we got scored on that game on the kill, luckily enough. But I don't necessarily know that that was like a light bulb moment for anyone other than myself, but just to realize like, hey, this is an opportunity to like live what you talk about and like act on something that you say is important. So yeah, that's an example that comes to mind for me of that. I can kick it back to you there.
Yeah, yeah. You said a lot of I wrote a lot down already. Because there's a lot of overlap. Maybe different terminologies, maybe different concepts, but like the truth being the truth and like what's underlying and all of that is very similar. So like um you talk about having an attitude of ownership. Um you and I have spoken about like the term agency and like heard that from George Mack. And like the difference between high agency and low agency. And like then that bleeds into self-determination theory, which I think we've talked about in a previous episode, but like the three tenets of self-determination theory, for those that don't know, autonomy, competence, relatedness. And the autonomy piece, like making sure your players have ownership or agency or power, whatever terms you want to use. Um, is super important to both of us. And then you were also getting into like the modeled or embodied. Um, I forget who said it. I think I just read it in uh, Belonging, the Owen Eastwood book I was talking to you about. But like it does you no good. And there's a coach that said like he doesn't, so many coaches like put stuff on the walls and these empty words that they don't live out. And it's just, it's on the wall, it's on a poster, whatever. And he's like, our walls are empty, but like we live what we believe. Um, and I think that's incredibly more important than putting passion or grit or whatever on the locker room wall if you don't live it out. I did want to circle back. You obviously mentioned the attitude piece to your philosophy, and then you said there was a mindset piece as well, and I cut you off to kind of go down a separate rabbit hole. So, talk to me about that mindset piece and what that kind of involves for you.
Yeah, I will say just on that, like with we've talked about this before, I feel like, but like the slogans and what you have on the walls versus what you don't. I do feel like if you live them, kind of like what you're saying or what the author's saying, like if you live them, like you don't need slogans. If you really like live whatever it is that you want to see and you're emulating that as not just as a staff, but as like a team, as an organization, everyone through and through, like those words become less and less critical because everyone just knows like this is the attitude that Drew carries, so this is the attitude I need to carry. So I certainly agree with that. But as far as mindset goes, like I said like kind of two pieces to the mindset. For me, they're compete mindset and growth mindset. Um, compete is like such an overused thing, but the way I the way I view compete might be different than what other people would call it. It might be called something different for others, but like I think compete the way I view it is like competing against ourselves, like trying to be the best version of us and improving just on our own habits or ability from a day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. Um, that's competing to me. It's not, I mean, yes, you go out and you like compete in a game for sure. And you can tangibly see players that compete hard versus maybe players that don't. But to me, like competing is an everyday thing that you do. It's not, and it's against yourself. It's not like when you get into practice and you have a drill, or a game, like you just compete against that guy across from you. Like you should be competing against like your own ability. And are you doing more for us in college? Like are you doing more as a sophomore than you were as a freshman? If you are, then you're competing. You're living to that standard. But if you are you had a really good freshman year and now as a sophomore you're like I know I can get away with certain things because I was good last year. You're not That's not what I want to see. That's not the competitiveness that To me, or I should say, that's not the attitude that shows a compete mindset. Like to me, competing is a constant. And I again, some of those things are like cliche, but I really do like. I think no matter where you're at, whether you're in the NHL or you're in, I don't know what level below, like you should only be comparing yourself and your team to the prior version of yourselves and not, we're X team and we look at, we're the Blackhawks, but we compare ourselves to the Wild. Like, well, why? You're not them. You never will be. You don't do things the way they do. You don't have the same players, coaches, staff, whatever. So that's one. And then a growth mindset. That one, again, cliche, but to me, growth mindset really starts and stops with humility and asking questions. People that have a growth mindset are humble, know they don't know everything, and as a result, they ask a lot of questions. They want to learn, they want to improve, they want to find out what they don't know, and they want to make improvements on those areas that they maybe don't have all the answers to. So to me, that growth mindset is another thing that um, if you're able to do that consistently, if you're able to express humility, ask questions, ultimately what that leads to is like a solution-oriented organization that no one's going to sit there and identify this is the problem we have, this is the problem. We're just going to start providing solutions for our problems. And then we're going to get to a point where we ask the right questions and we're humble enough to know that we can move towards a, collective creative solution. So I think that one is super important to me. And I think growth mindset to me is you can like really tell if someone has a growth mindset by talking to them one or two times. And if you get on a phone, whether this is in recruiting or another coach or a player that you already coach, like you get on a phone with someone for one of the first times you talk to them and they don't ask a single question, they probably don't have a growth mindset because there's just no curiosity within them. They think they know things, or they're just content with the knowledge they have and they're not really looking to find out more. So I think the growth mindset to me is something that is a little bit easier to like ascertain than a compete mindset is, but it's to me equally important.
Yeah. On the humility piece, um, I think I think where I'm going with this, just me and you are talking out loud right now, just time constraints. But like if we do a part two, just hammer me with questions, but we'll keep this one focused kind of on your thought process, thought trainer on coaching philosophy, if you're good with that.
Hmm.
So on the humility piece, like again, kind of circling back to ownership and embodied and then keeping it tactical. Do you have like an experience either where you've seen it in a player or whether or how, I should say, like you are modeling that within yourself and not necessarily signaling that to the players like on purpose, but just living out again, embodying a value, embodying a um idea.
Yeah. I mean, with the compete mindset, like I, as far as like only comparing ourselves to ourselves and not anybody else, like I never, when when we're trying to work on something as a team, whether that's like the penalty kill, like I said, I run, or working with the forwards on something, like I'm never like, hey, let me show you film of this team that does it really well, and like let's try to do that too. Like for me, it's like I need to explain it to them well enough and teach it well enough that not that they don't need to see film of it, but that they don't need to like look at this and be like, oh, okay, so we need to emulate that team. Um, and that doesn't mean that like everything we do is original. Like, of course, like you gain ideas from other people and gain insights from someone that maybe you talked with or um, that you learned something from. But now, like instead of going and showing, like I think when I first got into coaching, I was like, okay, if we want to be a good ozone team, like let's show them the Chicago Blackhawks back in the day with like Kane and Seabrook and Tays and Keith. Like that five-man offense was unbelievable. But instead of doing something like that, like find out how to teach that. And then show that and continue to show ourselves getting better at it or the areas that we need to improve upon. And to me, that leads to like now we're competing against ourselves because now it's let's say in the season it's practice number 43. I write out every practice like and when we send it out, it's like the date and then like day number 43. So like it's day 43. Like you've had let's say we worked on this day 40 and day 37 and day 34. Like we can go back and look at how it was those days. I don't want to look at how someone else did it. So I don't know if that exactly is it, but like that's sort of how I view like competing against ourselves and like me emulating it. Like I want us to try to get better on the things that we need to do, not like necessarily look at other teams and say they do it better. Let's try to do that too. Or let's try to do it like them. Like let's put our own spin on it. Um, and then from a growth mindset, like I just I honestly like it's not something that I intend to I don't like set out to ask questions, but I just naturally do. Like I we have players that on our team from all over, like, you know, all over the world. Some guys that grew up multiple different countries or multiple different places in the US and like as anyone that's familiar with hockey or sports in general knows, like everyone has a really different background of how they got to where they are. So like I know that I can look at elite prospects and find out that a kid on our team is from Sweden or from whatever country, but like how did he get here? Why did he get here? Why did he played for, the Topeka Roadrunners in the NA? Like why them? Why did he specifically play for them and not for another team in that league? Like just asking questions, I think um, if someone asked me all about my background, like I'm probably gonna infer that they care and they're curious. So I just find myself like, trying to emulate that from a growth mindset and showing like, sure, I'm a coach and I might like quote know more because I'm older, I'm supposed to, but I don't have all the answers and I'm curious, like you might have done something as a peewee in Florida that I could learn from. So yeah, just for me, it's like really simple, just asking questions and being interested and curious.
Yeah. On that, like you kind of tapped into the player relationship piece and just like we talk almost every day, exchange some sort of message, audio, phone call, whatever. And I know that like player relationships um are something that's like very important in general, but like you're very mindful of building relationships. And I think just based on what you've said, what I've heard, that you do a really good job with it. So like talk to me about um maybe I don't want to use the word like systems because again, like all of the stuff that like you intend to do, like the principle of player relationships and improving them, but like you don't, I need to sit down with this person today and like we need to talk about this. But like where I'm going with this, like you play tennis with guys and you do other stuff like that. So like talk about like just those kind of informal um meetings, air quotes I'm using if you're not on video, just to like build play relationships and like some of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I will say like a lot of it is not by design in the sense
Mhm.
that I'm not like, hey, let's do this. Like, I've definitely learned some really interesting things. I've actually found some of the better relationship. I say it like it's surprising and it shouldn't, it's not. But I've found that like some of the better relationship building advice or like ideas I've gotten come from women's coaches. Just little things like get out of your office and walk around the track or walk around campus if you're going to meet with someone. Um, Go like out of your office and grab lunch or grab a coffee. Like don't get out of that like power dynamic where it's your office and they're sitting in your office talking to you, the coach. Um, so I think like some of those things I guess I say are like they're not necessarily by design. We're like, yeah, like I've played tennis with a handful of our guys, but I don't, and like some of them regularly, but I didn't like necessarily set out to do that.
Mm.
We have another guy on our team that like in the fall would jump on the bike every day before lift, or every week before lift. And I was just like, I don't know, a 45-minute bike ride down at the gym. I could do that with him. And we just like we had a good relationship prior, so I just started doing that with him in the fall whenever I was around. And um, like there's I think when you like when there's opportunities like that, you just like again, you just like learn like this individual guy, like I learned what his parents do, which I never would have known otherwise. His dad's got like a pretty interesting job. And so you just like learn layers to them as people. And now like you are exposed to maybe more than you would be otherwise. But yeah, I don't know. I struggle to like figure out or say like this would be my like this is the framework for how to go about doing this because I guess like I'm not intentionally doing it. It's more just like I know as a player, I felt like the coaches I had the best relationships with cared about me, or at least I felt that they cared about me. And so whether I was the best player on the team or the worst player on the team, like they were checking in, talking to me, wanted to get to know more. And then on the inverse of that, like when I felt like a coach wasn't doing that, I just felt like I didn't matter as much. So for me, like I think I was talking to somebody else recently about this, as a coach of another sport. And I was saying, like, in a lot of ways, I think, like you want to be the coach that you felt you didn't have. And to me, that would be like when I was playing again at no specific point, but like if I just had a coach that I felt like I could go play tennis with, or I could go like chat about my girlfriend or something, you'd feel like close to that guy, and you'd feel like I can confide in him more than just like what I think of my line right now or what I think of our team's production. So I think like I wanted to when I started coaching, wanted to try to be like approachable and someone that guys could talk to and felt comfortable around. And then that's just kind of snowballed to like other things that I wouldn't have really like set out to try to do, like you brought up tennis, the bike thing, just like those are little things where I never said like, hey, when I'm at Tufts, I want to do this, but like they've just sort of naturally occurred, I guess.
Yeah. The thing that comes to mind, that's gonna be redundant, but I'm gonna use the word mindful. And like I think you're very like self-aware and I think you're also very others aware. And something that we'll talk about later this season in terms of like player development and stuff, like ecological coaching will come up. And like one of the concepts or terms in that is an affordance, which is just an opportunity to act. So like if I'm on the point and I'm drawing you to me and you're the strong side winger, so you're my check. Like if I draw you all the way to me, dish the puck, and then hop into the space behind you, like the space behind you and drawing you all the way to me creates an opportunity to get into that space. So like circling back to a a little bit of a diatribe, but circling back with that like thread in mind, you see a kid on a bike at the gym and you just it's not I need to talk to these players. It's not like some coaches have the system, and we've talked about this, and I make fun of it, and I'm going to do it again. But like checking in, like you have all the names, and you have to hit conversations with every kid and cross them off all week. And then when the week's over, you erase it and do it again. And like what I framed up, like what I know you to do, and then you just exemplified it with that story on the bike. Like you're just in the gym and then you see a player on your team and you're like, what are you doing? Oh, I do this every week. And you're like, I could do that. And like, that's your opportunity to act. And it's not intentional, but you've just seen a potential. I could do this, choose to do it. And then with that, like second order effects or compounding that over the course of a season, like all of a sudden, you know, family, friends, you've had intimate conversations about his troubles, your troubles, whatever. And like that could unlock him as a player. That could make him feel more comfortable. That could make him play better. And like again, not that those are the intentions, those are side effects, but like it's just seeing I could do this and then doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a better, more succinct way to put it than what I than what I was saying. I think it's like I think for me, there's two things that come to mind. One is like when you're really at the heart of it is just being available and being around. And I would almost equate it no different than like recruiting. Like if you don't go watch games often, you're gonna have a hard time finding the best fit or the best players for you because you're not gonna be available enough. You're not gonna have a big enough sample size to have seen quality players often. You're not gonna have been at games enough to talk to like their coaches or maybe even other coaches about whether the player's interested in you, not interested, what he does or doesn't like. Like you just part of like the recruiting game is literally just being available and being around. And it's no different here. Like if you if you have like, this office as a coach that you just don't leave, or you have an area like the gym or the track that you just don't enter, it's going to be hard for you to like have those interactions or those like opportunities. Um, and then, so that's one. The other thing I was gonna say is like, there was a time when I was coaching where I would do exactly what you just said, like make a list and be like, I need to touch base with. And I will say, like at the end of the year before guys leave for summer, I do that. I want to make sure I touch on each guy and like, if I miss their exit meeting for any reason, like this year I missed a few with recruiting. Like I just wanted to make sure that I was able to see them before they went home for summer. But I used to do that like going out for practice, have like a list of guys to touch base with. And what I realized doing that, it was like twofold. One, there were certain guys that like you found yourself like take a guy who maybe is like not playing a ton right now and probably like not in a situation where he's happy. And then you are like forcing this conversation with him just because it's like the next guy on your list. And there's like it's not beneficial for either of us. Like for me as a coach, it's kind of like strained and awkward. And for him, like he wants to ask questions that like I don't have a good answer for, such as like when am I going to be in next? And I can't answer that. And so you get this like uncomfortable interaction where you'd be better off like finding a way throughout the week or the next week or so to just talk to him naturally. And that might be like before a game at the rink when he's out of the lineup. That might be when it is. But that's better than like I got to talk to him Tuesday night at practice. So I've learned that too of like you want to be mindful that you're making guys that you're like allowing guys to have conversations with you and you're making sure that they feel valued and important, but not like forcing it for the sake of like next guy on my list.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll wrap there. We'll continue this conversation.